Hello, welcome to Guns and Yellow Ribbons. This is Fergus, I'm your host, and on this one we're doing our 1 to 11. On this 1 to 11, I am going to be talking to Max from Arse Bros. But to explain the concept of how our 1 to 11 works, the man who invented the topic is Potsy. Potsy, how are you?
Hello, mate. Yeah, I'm good. Cheers, buddy. I like the way that you say I invented 1 to 11. Brilliant. This is just a concept that we could do to kind of fill some time because there's not much content at the moment. And we've done it normally. We usually do it in the international breaks. But of course, with everything that's going on in the world at the moment, it's the perfect time. And I've spoke to Max about it for quite some time now. And we've tried to arrange to get him on a few international breaks, but it just hasn't happened yet. So what I spoke to Max about was about a 1 to 11, but he wanted to do it a little bit differently. So he wanted to do a 1 to 11 from the Emirates era. So no player that has played a game at Highbury. So the likes of Van Persie's and Fabregas's can't be included. So I thought that we'd get Max on to do that. So yeah, introducing you to Mr. Max Ware from Arse Bros. How are you, Max?
Hello, boys. How are you?
Very
Good,
well.
Mate. Good. Thank you very much.
Just explain where you are in the world. You're in Melbourne right now?
I am. I'm in Melbourne. I'm at Mum and Dad's house. I'm house sitting. So there's 3 cats rolling around. So if you hear some pussy, it's one of the 3.
Make sure you keep it clean, my friend.
That's as dirty as I'm going to go, Fergus.
So, Max, listen. In this coronavirus environment that we're in, we're all struggling. I've had some sort of
You're
flu.
not. You've already developed the antibody inside your shell, mate. You're good to go.
You're the safest out of the 3 of us, mate. Yeah.
You can go out and start licking buses like normal.
Thank you for such kind words. We're going to look at you. We're going to look at you 1 to 11. We have to explain that you moved to Melbourne. Your dad's originally from South London. You moved to Melbourne in the 80s, was it? When?
Early 90s. Early 90s. Moved to Brisbane and then moved to Melbourne. So we're still sort of, despite being not quite Australian enough to be Australian and not quite English enough to be English. We're somewhere in the middle because we're still diehard England fans. And Toby and I, Toby who does the Arse Brothers with me, we both consider ourselves English, but we come from Chelsea and Arsenal fans. So we're very lucky for the side of the road that we fell on. That's thanks to my uncle, Bob the Knob, notorious for having a giant knob.
And if anybody gets any inclination, the reason that he's from Arse Bros Rant is if you really fancy something that you can't let your wife or your kids listen to Arse Bros. It's that bad I don't even listen to it. So we're going to go through your 1 to 11, and this is your all-time 1 to 11. I know Dan has said a little bit about that you wanted to keep it more to the Emirates Stadium. It's probably more relevant to the time that you've been following the football club, etc., and so on. But it doesn't.
I just thought that we've done so many 1 to 11s, and I find the problem with 1 to 11s now is that so much of it is the Invincibles era, and with good reason. You know, yes. So we're always going to have Bergkamp in there, and before we even start doing a 1 to 11, we can almost pick 5 positions that everyone's going to have there. You know, Tony Adams is always going to be in there. Seaman's always going to be in there. So I thought, no, let's do something kind of modern era and see kind of where we come out. And I've got some names in here that might cause a little bit of debate.
Good. That's what it's all about.
So let's start. I'll start with the keeper, and then Dan can take over on the central defence. So keeper wise, who would you go for?
So, you know, this is an interesting one because I really have thought for a long time that we haven't had a world-class keeper or close to a world-class keeper since probably Jens Lehmann. And there's 2 names that sort of came up that I started working through. And I think one, we didn't really get to see the full potential of him. And I think the other, we may be getting to see the full potential of this season. So Bernd Leno, for me, big shout. It's weird. He gets a lot of people who kind of shout him down because he does have a little mistake in him, or people shout him down for his distribution. But, you know, people talk about Aubameyang navigating us through this season. I would argue that Leno has done as much, if not more.
Okay. Okay, Leno, I have criticised for his distribution, more the speed rather than the accuracy. We said at Burnley, Dan, when we're up there, we were criticising that. But overall, actually, you know what? I think he could be, not yet, but I think he could be one of those names that we will think back on as a good Arsenal player in times to come. Dan, do you want to talk about the centre halves?
Yeah, Max, obviously centre halves is a tricky one because obviously Kolo Touré can't be included because of his games over at Highbury, and we've had kind of probably 5 or 6 horrendous centre backs in my opinion. So was this decision easy or difficult for you, mate?
No, this I found this decision really, really easy to knock out because I think for at least a season in the Premiership, maybe 2 seasons, for a period of time, I actually thought that we had the best centre-back pairing in the Premier League at a stage. And that was during when Koscielny and Per Mertesacker were playing. So one big shout-out for Manny, his favourite player in the world, Laurent, Vive la France, El Capitan, my Capitan. No, I genuinely thought for a period of time that Koscielny and Per Mertesacker were the perfect combination. In Koscielny, you had the dynamic, you know, you had the athlete. I know he took quite a long time to get going, but once he did hit his straps, he was a fantastic defender for us. And Per Mertesacker, up until probably that last season, that maybe that one season too many, when he came in a very trying time for Arsenal, he really stabilised us. And like I said, at a period, I did actually think that they were one of the best centre-back pairings in the competition. So very easy for me.
I think 2012, 2013, when they did get together as a partnership, they didn't lose for 22 games when they started together.
That was Wojciech's Golden Glove season as well. I think just to, I mean, we talk about keepers and having to make saves and clean sheets and things like that, but you know, Wojciech's best season with the best centre-back pairing in front of him shines through.
So is that Buffon's understudy?
I think with Leno I think that when Leno compared to when Wojciech left us, I think Leno is actually ahead of when Wojciech left us. So that was kind of my thinking on it. Whether or not Leno ends up at the same level as Wojciech, that's not for us to say because Wojciech's not an Arsenal player anymore. He wanted to go over where he could smoke cigarettes and no one would look down on him.
So you've done your centre backs as Per and Koscielny. Who's your left back?
Again, really easy for me. Mr. Reliable, Nacho Monreal, who I think people talk about Arsenal legends and they talk about, well, who's an Arsenal legend and why are they Arsenal legends? I think Nacho Monreal, for the duration of the time he was at the club, for the goals he scored, for the leadership he showed, for how solid he was, for the fact that he came in as an understudy to Kieran Gibbs, who was meant to be the next big thing and, you know, displaced him. Huge Nacho fan. I think that we would have done, I think some of these contracts, some of these older contracts that we let go in the summer for fear of them running down, I think we would have navigated some of these things better with more leadership and the type of leadership that Nacho Monreal showed throughout the duration of his Arsenal career would have been, you know, very needed throughout these trying times at Arsenal.
And right back?
Super easy for me. Bakary Sagna. I think probably the best right back. I would have had Bakary Sagna if this was an all-time Arsenal 11, not just Emirates era. Such is my sentiment towards him as a player. Fantastic player for us. Absolutely cracking. No, I'd take Sagna over him. Big, strong, would win a ball in the air.
Consistent as well. Consistent. 7 or 8 out of 10 every game.
Incredibly consistent. I mean, there's, you know, headed goals at times when we needed it. And it's funny if you go back and you think about Sagna was an amazing outball for us because Wojciech always used to ping the ball out to the right. When we didn't have people who could hold it up front, you could count on Sagna that he would hold it up for you. Cracking player.
Fair one, mate. I can't really say that. I disagree with that. So far, it's spot on with mine. To be fair, there's not one player so far that I haven't.
No, we'll get there.
I'm sure it'll become different, mate. Yeah, in your midfield. What formation have you gone for first, Max?
I went with a 4-2-3-1. So
okay, mate.
Yeah, so two midfield.
Who are your two midfielders then?
Cazorla and Ramsey are my two midfielders.
Same as me, mate. So far, same as me. Go on, mate. Yeah. Talk about Santi Cazorla first, because he's top draw.
I think Santi Cazorla. Yeah, look, I think everyone's sentiments to Santi Cazorla are a bit warped because of how much of a lovely guy he was, and I think that makes people kind of throw extra points on top of him, as well as him being a great footballer. But even if he was a prick, I think that I would have had him in this 11 anyway. And I think Santi Cazorla, and you know, when you're doing 1-11s and you're including Emirates Era and you're doing Arsenal midfielders, Santi Cazorla doesn't get in there. But I guarantee you he's on everyone's bench and he's in the conversation. Two-footed, beautiful footballer, dynamic. When Arsene Wenger, like a drunk, stumbled upon the Coquelin Santi formation, I think it was against City, where we dominated them and he dominated possession.
Best player on the pitch, yeah.
Yeah, that was a point where I thought, oh, this is where the turning point is. This is where it changes. And I genuinely believe that a season with Santi, one of the seasons when he wasn't there, you know, maybe a second place becomes a first place. So, you know, such was his impact on the team, his ability to hold possession, his two-footedness. I mean, you know, I know that even kind of, you know, Marion Shamak looks great in a highlights package, but do yourself a favor while we're in containment, if we're running out of other things to watch and you need some assistance, go watch some Santi Cazorla because it'll get you there.
Max, I put him down as the player of the decade. Everybody disagreed and said it was the player that you're about to mention. I went for Cazorla just for the pure fact that I just saw something special. And I think that with players of that era that were playing in the generation with him, of Mesut Ozil, Alexis Sanchez, the Jack Wilsheres and the Ramseys of the world, everybody picked Santi Cazorla as the best player at the club. And that was enough for me.
Yeah, look, player of the decade, I went with Ramsey. But I have also been a massive Ramsey, what's the word I'm looking for?
Fan.
No, the opposite of that. I've been an anti-Ramsey
criticizer.
Yeah, very much.
I think we all have, but we can actually see the quality of a player he is.
Yeah. Look, I think with Aaron Ramsey, there's one single purple patch season in there, which was his Galactico season. The interesting thing about that season where he scored all the goals is if you look at him statistically, he also led Arsenal for ball recoveries. He also led Arsenal for tackles. He was averaging nearly 4 tackles a game as far as dispossessive tackles. You know, and it was after that I think he started to actually consider himself a further forward player. And the best Aaron Ramsey we ever had was a box-to-box midfielder scoring goals. And I think he lost his way for a period of time as he got into the mentality that he was all about scoring screamers, and that's all he was. That season where he scored all the screamers, you know, was so much more than that. Like I said, you know, his passing ability, his ability to run through the lines. My issues with Ramsey as the years went on was that he didn't do as much of the work in the back end of the box as what he used to, that he was a little bit of a maverick, and also his injury record. That was why I didn't want to give him the money. I didn't want to sign him up on a contract.
Injuries played a part. I mean, to be fair to the lad, that was a hell of a leg break against Stoke, and he's the only Arsenal player, in my opinion, to come back from that. You know, you look at the Diabys and Eduardos of this world that just finished their careers. He's actually made a career of it. Now, whether that was because he was 19 when it happened to him and he managed to get it, or whether it was just wasn't as bad of injury as the other two. But I think for me, he did come back onto the scene. And I think what it does do, and I hate bringing up other players from other teams on these things, but I think it proves how good Gerrard and Lampard were for their clubs, because what Ramsey did in one season, they consistently achieved every season. And I think that Ramsey could have done that, but the injuries just played a massive part for his career, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
Also, his ability to wipe out the Italian population on one goal.
Yeah, look, there's a lot of talk about people saying, oh, we should have given Ramsey the contract. We should have given him the money. Would we be a better team? Would we be a better team with Ramsey in the team right now? Yes, we would. for the 18 games a year he would have played. So
that's the truth of it. It's the number of games he'd play. He'd play 18, 20 games out of possible 60. So that's your 4, that's your 2. Then you got 3 and 1. Let's go to your middle of your 3.
Yeah.
Who's that going to be?
The one, the only Thomas Rosicky, probably my favorite player, all in all, of the last decade. What we would do with a player like Rosicky at the moment, whether it was off the bench, whether he was starting, his ability to change tempo, his ability to up Arsenal's tempo, to get us on the front foot, basically a much, much better Mkhitaryan. What Mkhitaryan did for us last season is what Rosicky did for us so many seasons after that, except he had production. He scored goals against Tottenham and he spanked them into the top corner. And another guy who, if he wasn't riddled with injury, I mean, the fact that we got some fantastic seasons out of him at the end of his career is a credit to the technicality of him, that even as he slowed down and his body was sort of leaving him, you know, we got this great run from him. What a guy, what a player.
Him and Santi have got to be in the same sort of like bracket of, you know, knackered players that just still performed.
Yeah. Yeah,
I think with Rosicky, he comes as a fan favourite. Everybody loved Thomas Rosicky, and I think another one who had injuries that let him down. I think there was one time he was injured for pretty much 2 full seasons, Thomas Rosicky. So had some issues injury-wise, but what a player he was. And I think that when you look at a player that was given the shirt number after Robert Pires, there's a massive weight kind of on your shoulders at that stage. And I think what he did was perform consistently in an Arsenal shirt. And if it wasn't for injuries, he would have done even more. So again, Max must be looking at my team, because so far it's literally player perfect at the moment. So it's all going to be.
He loved a goal against Tottenham. Loved a goal against Tottenham, which makes you a legend. Yeah,
Max. So it's not about Dan. Let's look to the left of your 3. Who's on your left side of your 3?
So this is one that's gonna cut some people up, because I was looking at it and I was thinking about sort of how many players we've had out there, and you know, I guess the benchmark is Robert Pires is the benchmark, and quite frankly, I don't think that we've ever had anyone off the left who's got close to Robert Pires, and that includes that bin chicken of a player, Alexis Sanchez, who I do not care about his stats. The man was horrible for the club. So I immediately remove Alexis. So what do you do when you remove Alexis? You put in Andre Arshavin. And I put in Andre Arshavin.
What?
I put Arshavin in there. What a guy on his day. I think probably the most
about 3 days, Max.
Yep, probably the most under-delivered player in Arsenal's history.
Oh, are we that bad that we got a guy that's got 3 days on your left of your forward line?
No, loved him. Loved Arshavin. Put him in there. Refused to put Sanchez in there. I guess in hindsight now, probably Aubameyang off the left, but you know, didn't find a spot for him because I don't really like him off the left despite his goals.
Lazy bastard Arshavin ahead of Pierre Aubameyang.
Yep. One of my favorite, I would say one of my favorite, would be my top 3 Arsenal days of watching football ever is
Melbourne. The sun's very strong out there, and it does affect people. And
4 goals against Liverpool. You know, is one of my favorite Arsenal days.
And that's where it stopped. That's where it stopped.
When I'm lying on my deathbed, I think I'll remember those 4 goals.
You know what they say? One swallow doesn't make a spring.
Yep.
I know, but
I'm struggling to get over this one. I'm struggling to get over this one. You could have had Lucas Podolski, you could have had Alexis Sanchez, and you've gone for Andre Arshavin.
Yeah,
wow.
It's the one I looked at, and I thought, oh yeah,
you look really open now, Max. You know that. You really didn't look open.
Yeah. But I loved him. I loved him as a player. And sometimes you have unconditional love for players because you love them for what they could have been or what they should have been. And Andre Arshavin at the time when he came in, you know, people talk about players that used to get them off their seat and get them feeling electric. And yes, it was a very short period of time that he did it for, but Andre Arshavin.
Do you know the one thing about Arshavin, being serious though? When we actually bought him, I think that he was seen as one of the better, if not one of the top 5 number 10s when we bought him, and we never played him as a number 10.
That's because
I just thought,
isn't it?
Well, exactly. And I just thought, I don't think we're playing him in the right position there. So, you picked him in your side and listen, he was a great player. I think he could have done more in that position because that was what he was doing at Zenit. That was what he was doing everywhere that he's gone, to be fair. After Arsenal, he's been playing just behind the striker. Great player, to be fair to you. But yeah, there are better out there, in my opinion. But listen, this is your 1 to 11, mate. So,
my 1 to 11, mate.
It's your 1 to 11. And on that basis, not necessarily to give you an opportunity to recover yourself because your 11 is your 11. Let's see what your yin to your yang is. Who's on your right of that three?
So this was no issue for me. This was the first name that went on the team sheet, and I know you guys always slag me off for it, right? But Theo Walcott on the right for me. I think one of the most underrated players by Arsenal fans, and I don't understand why. Because statistically, right, if I break down Theo Walcott for you, statistically, so Premier League, 114 involvements in 270 games. What does that say? FA Cup, 16 involvements in 21 games. Europa, 8 involvements in 5 games. Champions League, so involvements being goals and assists. Champions League, 7 involvements in 9 games. And FA Cup, 15 involvements in 33 games. His stats speak for himself.
Involved in a lot of games as well, you know that.
Yeah, it's absolutely fantastic, underrated, underappreciated by the Arsenal fans, underappreciated for the amount of work he did off the ball. So the amount of bent runs he used to make, which open up space through the middle. Go back, have a look at Theo's career, and without injuries at that time when I think he had finally kind of turned it around and turned it around from a consistency perspective is when he did his knee. Fantastic player for Arsenal. Never in the media, never, going out, never upsetting anyone in the club, a real club man. And honestly, his stats speak for themselves as far as his goal involvements and his goals. He scored a goal every 3-point-something games throughout his career. I mean, scoring 15, 17 goals in a season. Van Persie's best season before he left was heavily to do with Walcott. I think Walcott was responsible for nearly assists, 50 or 60% of his assists. Fantastic player. And the thing with Walcott that everyone sort of forgets is it's if you look at the way Pepe plays now, or you look at the way that even Martinelli plays when he's on the left, or Aubameyang plays when they're on the left, everything is about driving back to the center. Everything pulls everything back to the center, and it's an over congestion, and we're easy to work out because everything gets pulled back. And teams have worked out, give them the wings. We'll take the center. We'll put great big lumps of central defenders in there and we'll foul them. Theo Walcott's primary run was a bent run from inside to out, in between centre-back and right full-back. And that in itself is something that right now we would love to have because the relentless runs, I was looking at his stats earlier on about runs per game, massive amount of runs per game. So runs into space, pulling defenders out, which opens up space in the middle. And I think at one of our best threes that we've had when I said this is a serious 3 was actually Welbeck, Walcott, and Sanchez. Now, I don't like Sanchez, but when those 3 played together, there was so much athleticism, so much dynamic movement. We'd kill for that sort of dynamic movement and athleticism now. So I don't care. Shoot me down, Theo Walcott.
I think to be
I also gave him my captain's armband.
Oh dear, you have done well to justify it because the stats don't lie. I give you that. He has scored 100 goals for Arsenal, albeit in 10 or 11 seasons that he was there, which averages out at not many goals per season. However, I think that what you've done there is look at his attributes and his stats. And what I will say about Theo Walcott, the only thing that I think you've potentially missed out, or may have said it at the start, is how he scored important goals. Because if you look at the goals against Manchester United, Chelsea, Man City, Barcelona, AC Milan, he was a massive part in those games because he literally turned it on against big sides. And although I don't like to call him a big side, in the North London derby, he did genuinely get a goal. So I would give him, Theo Walcott, a lot of credit for that. Yeah, exactly. The 2-0.
Yeah, and he has a
that
moment.
was his injury.
He has an Arsenal
moment.
So,
yeah, that was his. That was his. And the last one I'll say actually is when we signed him, Harry Redknapp said what Arsenal signed here is potentially a very good player, but a very level-headed young man, and that's exactly what he was throughout of his career. And like you said, he was a professional. So
Dan and Max, can I ask you a question without going off subject? So keep it quite brief. He's gone on and moved on with Alex Iwobi. He's gone on and moved on to Everton. Is he fulfilling his potential there, or is he just proving?
I have a fantastic answer for that, and I'll put it in the terms of what I was saying about Ainsley Maitland-Niles a week ago. Right, some players require top players around them for their attributes to shine. Some players don't suit a team below 6. Some players can't go. It's like how you could, like, everyone's like, oh, you could bring up.
That's a political answer. You haven't answered the question I asked.
No, I have.
Is he fulfilling his potential at Everton?
No, not at all. Not at all. But I don't think that Everton. I don't think that Everton are a fantastic team.
Sorry, Max, you're saying because he hadn't quality players around him at Everton, he had quality players at Arsenal, and he didn't fulfill his potential.
But his stats would show that he did fulfill his potential. It's just that your recollection of him is that he didn't, because he had such a mixed amount of games, because he had the capacity to have terrible games. It gives us a dampening of what his overall. What he had, he had plenty of games. He had plenty of top games, Fergus. Plenty of top moments for us.
He didn't have consistency of games because of injuries and in and out of form, and then insisting he wanted to be centre forward, and then when he was made centre forward,
and then played very well at centre forward, then got an injury. He was actually his game against Man U when he didn't score a goal at centre forward.
He wasn't a very good centre forward. Man of the match, the back as a winger, and then he got sold.
Do you want to have a chat about Guendouzi now?
Listen, let's talk about your number 11, your point man. Who is your point man? Who's your final 11?
So I think a lot of people would just immediately go for Aubameyang. Everyone would just immediately say Aubameyang. But for me, Aubameyang is the centre forward. It's whether it's something that we don't understand, whether it's a tactic that we don't understand, or he doesn't do something we don't understand. I didn't go with him. I went with the player who I thought could have or should have been a Premier League goal machine, should have been Arsenal's Aguero. And for me, that's Eduardo. I've never seen a man score goals like Eduardo scored goals. I think he's arguably the best pure finisher, one of the best pure finishers, and I mean pure finishers I've ever seen in the Premiership for such a small amount of time. That leg break was devastating. That 2008 team was a Premier League winning team. That was the last time we could have won it. We should have won it. If we had have won it there, it would have kicked us into another gear. It would have given Arsene Wenger a Premiership. It would have taken this asterisk off the amount of time he's gone without it. It would have given us a stamp at the Emirates. What a lovely player. What an array of finishes and creative finishes. And probably the guy for me who, when through on goal, I don't think as any Arsenal player, inclusive of even Henry, I don't think I've ever been as confident watching someone walk through on goal in thinking, that's a goal, that's going to happen.
I must admit, when he came to Arsenal and I saw his finishing ability, I said to my dad, that's the best finisher I've seen since Robbie Fowler. Because Robbie Fowler, for me, is the best finisher, better than Ian Wright, better than Henry. For me, Robbie Fowler, it was goal. Went through goal. I don't think I've ever seen him miss, and he had scored so many. With Eduardo, it was just like that. And you're totally right, Max, in terms of confidence. When he goes through one-on-one, you just know it's going in. The leg break was horrendous. He was never going to really come back from that. It didn't really work out for him at Arsenal, and it didn't really work out for him at Shakhtar Donetsk. He did score some goals. And I can see where you're going from with that. Obviously, your team is very similar to mine. I went for Aubameyang up front and Sanchez on the left. Because for me, I think over the last 5 years that they've been we've seen them at Arsenal, they have had more of an impact than Arshavin and Eduardo. But listen, this is your 1 to 11, mate. So you put in who you want. But listen, joking aside, that is and I get that's a good shout. I know he wasn't at the club long; it was a few seasons, but for me, great finisher, Eduardo, top player.
Yeah, I think a couple of players in my 1 to 11 have been what they possibly could have been. Arshavin, what he possibly could have been. Eduardo, what he possibly could have been. Rosicky, Cazorla, both I mean, not statistically, the most amazing players for Arsenal, but what they could have been. Walcott, to an extent, without injuries, what they could have been. In fact, most of my attacking line, I even throw Ramsey in there without injuries, what he could have been. I mean, it's really been the story of it's really been the story of Arsenal for the last decade.
Loads of players that what it could have, would have, and everything else. So let's run through your all-time 11 in goal.
In goal, I would have had Dave Seaman.
That's not what you said. You said Leonard.
No, you said all-time 11 then. This is my
no.
11.
Your 11 you've just gone through.
Oh, right. We're running through. I got confused as well. Sorry.
I thought we were quickly running through all time.
Running
11.
through the team you've just said. Yeah, cool.
Okay, so I have Leno in goal. I have Nacho Monreal at left back. Koscielny and Per Mertesacker as a centre-back pairing. I have Bakary Sagna as my right back. 2 in midfield. Dual pivot. Santi Cazorla and Aaron Ramsey. What a heavenly dual pivot, huh? What they would have done together. The 3 in front of them, I've got Andre Arshavin, Thomas Rositzky, and Theo Walcott. And up top, I've got Eduardo.
Can I just say, Eduardo? The last thing about Eduardo, best goal I saw him score was a great goal actually against Sheffield United in the cup. But for me, the best goal was when he actually broke his leg and broke his ankle, come back and scored with that ankle against Burnley. Alex Song dinked it in and he volleyed it into the top corner with that.
It's one of the strangest volleys you'll ever see in your life. Like, how do you even come up with the idea to hit a volley like that? It's such a strange finish. Like I said, I think that without that leg break, he would have been a player akin to Eduardo.
Max?
Akin to, what's his name? The lad from City.
Thank you.
Aguero.
That one. Yeah.
Aguero.
Max, I thank you very much. It was a very insightful Emirates 1 to 11. I know that you intimated that you've got an all-time 1 to 11, which we may do over the next couple of weeks because we've got lots of time and lots of fill in content over this. But thank you very much, mate. I do hope things treat you well out there in Melbourne and that all this madness that is going on in the world works out well for you. I thank everyone else for listening. You have been listening to a Guns and Yellow Ribbons podcast. This is a 1 to 11 from Max from Arse Bros. Max, do you want to give people a little bit of detail about what your podcast does?
Yeah, guys, Arse Bros Rantcast. So we're on Twitter. We're at Arse Bros Rant on Facebook, on Twitter, on everything. Give us a listen. We're definitely R-rated, but a little bit even less so these days because we're doing podcasts in the morning, which means I'm not drunk, which seems to make a huge difference to the general content of the show as opposed to when we were doing it at 9 o'clock and I had 6 cans of beer in me and then opened a bottle of wine. But no, we're an insightful adult podcast, definitely adult content, and we break things down. We've got a couple of fantastic shows. We review the month. We review all the players within the month, which is really interesting because we give positive points and negative points to players, and then we talk about who the best 3 players were and who the worst 3 players were in the club for the month. And then Manny Riz, Blackzilla, does Hot Topic every 2 weeks where we take one topic and we really, really drill it down. But all good. It's all good fun. Lots of podcast
and
content.
And you can look Manny in the eye when he talks about it.
Yeah, the avatar himself.
Listen, thanks very much, everybody. You have been listening to Guns and Yellow Ribbons, an Arsenal podcast by Arsenal fans for Arsenal fans. Dan, as always, thanks very much. Max, absolutely fantastic. Enjoyed your company as always.
Cheers,
only one last thing to say. Up the arse.
Up the arse.
Up the arse, boys. Cheers.